Well, welcome everyone to the CRC Roundtable, a monthly virtual webinar series where we host targeted, inclusive, and informed conversation that match scientific advances and management needs. The webinars are designed for contribution, not just consumption, so each seminar invites a diverse range of researchers, managers, and other professionals to have conversations around critical topics. The point of this is to build connectivity between all of us, provide a space to ask the clumsy questions, and to increase our collective understanding for decision making. As a reflection of that intent, the panelists have been given about 25 minutes total to provide introductory remarks, allowing a full 30 minutes for discussion. These webinars are recorded, and all past webinars are available on the CRC website and YouTube channel, so I encourage you to review those if you've missed some of the past sessions. As you arrive, please type your name, organization, and location into the chat box so we can all see who is with us today. And we also ask that as our panel is speaking, that you stay muted with your camera off. Now, we like to start each webinar by asking why this topic, why now, and why these speakers. In December, we like to dedicate our roundtable discussions to the creative side of conservation and restoration work. And in keeping with that tradition, today we're exploring artists in residence programs and how artists enhance the work of research institutions. Many universities and university-affiliated programs host artists in residence who focus on environmental themes, ecology, resilience, sustainability, and the relationship between humans and the natural world. These residencies provide space, time, and often interdisciplinary collaboration opportunities for artists to develop work that engages with environmental issues or scientific research. And they often build a dialogue between artistic practice and ecological stewardship while amplifying environmental awareness by crafting experiences that can reach broad audiences. Universities benefit from strengthened collaboration, enhanced public engagement, and improved research communication, all of which can support funding, recruitment, and institutional identity. Artists contribute forms of knowledge that are sensory, can address uncertainty and cultural values, and ask questions that science alone may not be able to ask. For universities, this expands what research and impact can mean without competing with scientific rigor. I've been waiting for this topic for several months now, and I'm so excited to dig right in and learn more. And I'm happy to introduce to you our two speakers today. We have Bethany Smith, the Associate Director of Formal Education at the Virginia Institute of Marine Science, and Matt Belzer, Director of Jazz Studies at University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and CIRCA-IMET Artist in Residence Fellowship Artist. I'm so grateful for both of them to joining us today and offering a look at these programs from both the program managers and artists' perspective and experience. Speakers, I will gracefully let you know if we bump up against time by turning on my camera. And attendees, please feel free to drop your questions into the chat as we go along. If we don't get to your questions during the question and answer portion of the webinar, we'll give the speakers the opportunity to address them afterwards, and we'll share that information along with any resources shared today in a follow-up email back out to the community. And with that, I will turn it over to our first speaker, Bethany.
Thanks so much, Melissa. I am going to just jump right in and share a little bit about two programs that we focus on at the Batten School and the Virginia Institute of Marine Science. And we'll go from there. So, from a programmatic standpoint, one of the things that we really like to think about is how can we communicate science both to our informal audiences, K through gray, and through formal education, our programs that we focus on in the K through 12 community. And one of the things we really started to think about was how can we integrate that visual storytelling into science? What ways can we capture creativity that's inherent in both art and science to foster these new novel partnerships and ways to communicate science in more approachable ways? You know, we've got lecture series, invited guest speakers, all of those sorts of things. But in what ways can we make science more approachable, not just for our younger learners, but also for the public that might not necessarily be the ones to come show up for a lecture? And how can we use these transdisciplinary approaches to get students excited about science? And that students is can also extend to the general public. My focus is primarily on K-12 formal education in my role at the Batten School, but the other half of our department also focuses on public outreach and engagement. And so we use these tools across both sides of our Office of Outreach and Engagement. The photo that's included on this slide is an oil painting of our aquaculture research farm at VIMS that was created by last spring's artist in residence, Trisha Bass, and I will feature some of her work a little bit later in my presentation. So today I'm going to focus on two of our emerging programs, Saltwater Stories and Waves of Wonder. But we also have several other programs that we incorporate into classrooms and summer camp programs, as well as ways that we train teachers to use art in their classrooms. And so we may get into some of those later if there's questions about those types of programs as well. This photo is from Waves of Wonder. We had William and Mary dance students representing the undulation of the giant oarfish dorsal fin through one of the collaborations they had with a graduate student. So our first program I'm going to feature today is Saltwater Stories, and this is our Artist in Residence program. Our most recent one happened in the spring of 2024. And we did this as a 2-week on-site program where our artist was in the field with researchers and students, as well as working around campus. And Trisha is a plein air painter. She's based in Denver, Colorado. So coming out to the coastal plain and Chesapeake Bay was a very new experience for her. Painting the landscapes here on the coast was also something she had not done before. And she was really excited to embed with researchers and learn about the work that they were doing. And this quote that I included here, I think tells perfectly what we're trying to accomplish through programs like these, in the way that we can help people understand and appreciate our planet and the valuable natural resources that we have around us. Scientists take that love and try to find solutions for the most emerging problems on our planet. And Trisha saw her job as an artist as trying to get people to fall in love with the planet and to understand why it's so important to protect it. And so we have the science for solutions and the art for translation and for helping people see why it's a worthy practice. And so these two paintings are her paintings out at Goodwin Islands in the mouth of the York River, which she titled Into the Chesapeake. And then we also embedded her with drone and shoreline mapping specialists along the shorelines at York River State Park, where she painted the photo in the lower right, which is titled On the York. In addition to her painting both in the field with researchers and on campus, embedded into this program was also a public lecture that was open to our entire campus community and advertised throughout our public social media resources as well. So we had both on-campus folks and the public attend. And then she also hosted a plein air painting workshop. And so we had about 12 or 15 folks from the local community that showed up just to paint and to paint and learn from our artists, while also learning a little bit about the science of our shoreline. And here they're painting our research pier. So they learned a little bit about the work that goes on in scientific research on the pier as well. And so I really appreciated having Trisha just to see from a different perspective what happens in the research work that our folks at FIMS do. And I think that's one of the key pieces to hosting these types of programs. And one of the really valuable resources that come out of it is that perspective that you take these two seemingly disparate genres, right? The science and the art, and you're putting them together and you're creating something that is approachable and meaningful and generates emotions and helps people care and understand in a way that they might not otherwise. So the other program I want to highlight really quickly is Waves of Wonder. And Waves of Wonder was a project that we worked with the William and Mary Provost's office for. So this was part of the Year of the Arts and Year of the Environment overlap at the College of William and Mary. And they had an Art and Science exchange program that funded several different projects that incorporated students in the arts and sciences. And so we had a team of faculty, staff, and students, and we worked on this last spring semester, which is why we didn't host an artist in residence last spring semester. We had 30 total students between our undergraduate art students and graduate marine science students that were acting as artists in residence or science advisors. During this program, we had visual art created as well as performance art. And so we created through a speed dating mini mixer these small groups of science graduate students and art undergraduate students that worked together to translate the research that the graduate student was doing into some piece of art, which was then presented during a public exhibition at the end of March. And we also hosted a visual capture demonstration and workshop as part of this program as well, because we wanted to extend the idea that using art to capture science was useful and important and exciting to our faculty, staff, and students that were not necessarily participating as artists or researchers in this program. And so we did a visual capture workshop and demonstration led by the amazing Zarafina Stasi of Good for the Bees Creative Studio. And in the demonstration, we had two researchers at VIMS give a lecture on the art of ichthyology. So the art of how are we documenting and demonstrating species? How has scientific illustration evolved over time? And during that live lecture, you'll see in the picture on the top right, Zara was actively illustrating, visually capturing the lecture as it was happening. And so she has done this work in Fortune 500 company boardrooms across the world. And so we brought it to VIMS as a way to take notes about the lecture in a more creative and artistic way. And this is a way to reimagine how information from meetings and lectures can be made more accessible to a wider audience. And so you can see in the piece that Zara created, she's captured all of the content from this meeting in a very artistic way. And folks were able to take photos of this and leave with that as their notes, their information from the meeting. We also hosted a workshop for faculty, staff, and students at the Batten School and VIMS where they were able to also learn some of the techniques so that they could utilize this in their future work. And I will finish up with some examples for you from Waves of Wonder, the work that was created by our visual and performing arts students. We had From Sea to Port, which was all about a squid's journey from the ocean to market. We had a piece about larval billfish. And so this sculpture illustrates what a larval billfish looks like when it's cleared and stained. And that's a really important process for researchers to understand the bone structure and the cartilage structure of these larval fishes and their evolution. That piece was paired with a dance piece. And then the bottom photo shows the rise of Rupia. This was a life-size crocheted seagrass meadow, and it included a whole bunch of different seagrass creatures, and our visitors could walk through this life-size seagrass meadow, learning about the different organisms that call it home and the ecosystem services provided by seagrass. And it was a really unique experience for folks that were there. We also had a number of performance art pieces, dance pieces that were incorporated into this program. And we worked with a compositional dance choreography class to create these pieces that illustrate the research of our graduate students. And I have a video example of one of them for you all. Just to show you, it's a video example of the microscopic movements piece. And interestingly enough, the performers decided to use top-down projection on this piece so that people watching the performance actually had a view as if they were looking down a microscope at the red tide phytoplankton. And so I will show you a piece of this, but I will also include a QR code so that you can watch the full length video if you want. But I just thought it was so creative that these students were able to create a microscopic view for the audience in this performance. So while we don't have time to watch the whole thing, eventually other dancers join to create these chains of phytoplankton that move underneath the microscope and across the stage. And it was just so exciting to see an entire auditorium, over 100 people packed in there, watching dances about science. And for me, as an educator and a science communicator, that was really the ultimate goal and the really exciting piece was to see the public really excited about science and having questions and wanting to know more because they watched these dances and they saw these paintings and sculptures and they walked through a seagrass meadow that was life-sized. So it just sparked their desire to know more and want to know more. So I will leave us with just a snippet. This is from Microscopic Movements. We created an interactive story map that highlights all of the art pieces created in the Waves of Wonder project. And that QR code will take you directly to the story map where you can learn more about all of the dances, all the visual art pieces. We don't yet have all of the videos edited and uploaded, but ultimately all of the videos will end up on that story map as well. It's just a way to highlight everything that our awesome students and artists were able to accomplish. And so I am going to stop there. But I really appreciate the opportunity to share these amazing programs with you all. So thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Bethany. That was incredible. I look forward to exploring that QR code immediately after this. So thank you for sharing that. And folks, we will make sure that we send that out in the email that will follow this. So now we'd like to turn it over to Matt Belzer.
All right. Let's jump right in here. Okay, so thanks for having me here today. Glad to be invited to do this. What I wanted to do today was to talk about, just tell you kind of who I am, what this residency is, and what my process has been so far, and maybe if I have any insight about artists and scientists and what that means. So I'm the Director of Jazz Studies at UMBC. I'm the 2025 CIRCA-IMET Artist in Residence Fellowship Artist. So at UMBC, I am the Director of Jazz Studies. This is a photo, backstage photo of our most recent concert with all of our ensembles and some faculty there. UMBC is a great place to work. The music department is very forward-looking, very friendly towards innovation and newly created music and jazz. So I'm glad to be a part of it there. Um, when I'm not the director of jazz studies, which is directing groups and teaching courses and teaching lessons and whatnot, I'm also a member of an ensemble. This is called the Anansi Trio. Anansi, as in the spider, the trickster storyteller. The name's in keeping with our percussionist, who's sort of trained in the folkloric percussion tradition of Afro-Cuban music. And we're somewhat active. You can find us on YouTube doing things. I'm also, when I'm not doing that, I'm a theater commercial musician. I'm a woodwind doubler, and so what that means is when you play more than one woodwind, you're a doubler. So for me, I play all the flutes and all the saxophones and all the clarinets. And there are doublers who are better than me, who can also play double reeds, the oboe and English horn and bassoon. So if there's a touring production or a new production going on in Baltimore or DC, I'm likely in the orchestra pit. Okay, so this fellowship is through CIRCA and IMET. So I thought I'd quickly tell you sort of what CIRCA and IMET are. This is an excerpt from their statement, but it stands for Center for Innovation, Research, and Creativity in the Arts. It's a great center within UMBC that facilitates a lot of artistic activity and hosts many events and supports arts throughout the whole region. I encourage you to look them up on the site here. And you probably already know what IMET is, but it's the Institute of Marine and Environmental Technology. It's right next to the aquarium in Baltimore, right there in the Inner Harbor. It's a great looking building. The partnership between CIRCA and IMET has been ongoing for some years now. And I think I'm the first musician to be able to participate. So I'm really lucky to do that. Pretty much what I do is creative improvised music. So it's jazz and jazz adjacent styles. So that would be, there's a sort of Afro-Cuban and funk and R&B sort of all, and new music all sort of combined in there. My project, and it was what my proposal was, is called The Ocean is Aware. And it's going to be presented as a suite for an ensemble of creative musicians. So I'll talk more about the instrumentation later in this process, but my proposal had to do with my interest in the awareness of the organisms in the ocean, awareness of each other, awareness of us. I was interested in their sort of sensory apparatus and sort of what is it like to be them, and awareness on sort of a sliding scale. I think music is especially well equipped to sort of address the more ineffable, the things that we don't necessarily have words for, but we can share in the experience through memory and through metaphor for music. And when I was doing this process, CIRCA in particular was very supportive and encouraging. Lynn Casaban was especially helpful in sort of helping me get my ideas in order to do this. These are the people I am collaborating with, Dr. Schott, Doctors Das Sarma, and Dr. Dooley at IMET. These were people that I also identified in my original proposal. And so I've been lucky that I've been able to go visit their labs. And so at Dr. Schott's lab, in addition to doing a lot of science outreach, one of the things they study there are dark false muscles. That's the kind of an older specimen on the right, but these are little creatures who are sort of the filters of the harbor. What's interesting to me, one of the things that's interesting, is that they can move a little bit, sort of like, unlike barnacles, and due to different triggers or environmental pressures, they will move to different regions and individually, but there's sort of a not a collective structure, but a emergent structure that's kind of interesting to me, and I hope I'm characterizing their study correctly. In the Das Sarma lab, they do very interesting work with this ancient organism, the Haloarchaea, who sort of reside in these salt crystals here on the left. And the image in the middle is colonies of them, and the image on the right is part of the process in studying them. I think the image on the right comes from Antarctica. A lot of samples come from the various salt mines deep into the earth where there once was an ocean, but there no longer is because it takes place over billions of years. And then Dr. Dooley works with nurse sharks. And when I got to visit in there were big signs that said, "Do not take any photos." So I decided not to take any photos, and instead you get Wikipedia. But I do have their names, and it was great fun to visit with these nurse sharks and learn all about them and see their behavior. There's something really special about being able to have these sort of in-person experiences, the tactile experiences of being able to touch things, looking through a microscope, and sort of doing your own rudimentary work in the lab. So my process for this is been, looking for collaboration, the phone calls, email follow-ups, ideas. Then I was able to visit the labs and have these conversations. I would document them, these visits with photos, mostly to trigger my own memory of those experiences. Part of my proposal is to perform at IMET. So it was we found a performance space, and we're in the process of sorting out how that's all going to work. And then what I do depends on a lot of other people. So I'm also thinking about musicians and instruments that would fit what I'm trying to accomplish. So my ideas so far here is for myself is I wasn't really interested in sonification. In other words, just sort of representing data in a musical way. There are folks who do that really well, and I didn't think I would do that really well. So I'm not interested in that. I also wasn't even interested in thematic representation, meaning like Peter and the Wolf, where this is the theme we associate with the shark, and this is the theme we associate with that. I'm trying to do something a little more difficult, thinking more in terms of metaphor, archetype, and narrative. And storytelling is sort of part of what I do in jazz and Afro-Cuban music anyway. So I'm trying to see each of these animals as differently. So dark false muscles, they're purifiers. The idea that you could be some seemingly insignificant individual that accomplishes great things, by purifying the water. Nurse sharks are full of personality, so I was very interested um, in exploring that. And the halo archaea are sort of these magical, ancient, basically immortal beings from billions of years ago, and they literally just travel through time in a salt crystal. So there's a lot there to capture the imagination. Actually, my ideas about arts and scientists, I think that that might be something better for the Q&A. And this is going to be the culminating project, which I'm going to do two performances right in the building during their open house. It's going to be on Saturday, May 2nd. And I am going to have a video crew there to document it. So something will remain with IMET once it's over. And it'll be me playing saxophones and a couple of colleagues here um, who play the cello and mallets and percussion, and then my two friends from the Anansi trio. And I'm already going to start with rehearsals, one version of rehearsals with that this week. So that's all I have for you. And thanks again for letting me share that with you.
Thanks so much, Matt. It's really fascinating to see, how you're exploring these different science labs and then using what you're learning to help inspire your piece. So I'm really looking forward to seeing where that ends up and listening to your finished work. Thank you for sharing and kind of letting us peek behind the curtain to see how all of that comes about. So we have a few questions that were submitted in advance to kick us off, but folks in our audience, please feel free to drop any questions or things you're curious about or want to hear more in the chat. So some of these are more targeted towards the programmatic side or the artist side, so I may direct them at one of you, but please, if the other has some insights to share, jump in. This is a really free-formed, flowing discussion. And so we did have, Bethany, you kind of hinted at this in your presentation, but we did have a couple questions sort of taking the artists in residence and this way of communicating these ideas out of a university context and working with sort of K through 12 education. And I know that you said that VIMS had some programs working with K through 12 and summer camps. So could you share a little bit more about that?
Sure. So, we feel like art is something that's accessible and exciting and interesting, regardless of the medium that you're working within. So, we try to incorporate art projects into the student programs that we do and the teacher programs that we do. And so, I can provide a couple examples of some things that we do that are easily scalable or useful, regardless of the audience that you're working with. One of those is nature journaling. And so we do some teaching of nature journaling, and we do nature journaling with our students, and we teach teachers how to nature journal with their students back at school. And so that's something that's just as simple as, even a piece of paper and a pencil, and just recording the world around you and documenting what you see and the features of it. I mean, it can be very elaborate. It can involve paint and watercolors and all of those things, but it can also just be a pencil and a piece of paper. And it's a way to really just document the world around you and what's special about it. And I think through doing that, we see students gain a better understanding and become more observant about the world around them. And it can be we're just handing them some shells or leaves or plants, in a classroom, or we're taking them outside on a nature walk, or we take them to our visitor center and let them sit in front of an aquarium full of fish and, document what they're seeing and the behaviors, and just having kids be quiet and use their eyes and their senses is really a great way for them to learn beyond just a textbook or a PowerPoint presentation. One of the other Things we've done is fish printing, which kids love at summer camp. And so they've fish printed shirts, bags, pillowcases, you name it. But we also include some learning about like fish adaptations or the body parts of fish or what makes those fish unique or different from other fish. And so it's an opportunity to learn about it and then do the art as sort of that physical representation of what you just learned. And kids love slapping paint on fish and stamping it on things. And I think probably lastly, one of the other things we've done is and I'll send a link. I have some photos of these that I can share out with the audience. We do a trash art project with our campers, so they learn about pollution and how it's impacting our environment. They learn about microplastics and ways that they can reduce their use of single-use plastics. And then we give them an outline of a local bay organism. We have flounder and seagulls and oysters and all things that they've encountered during their week at camp. And then, we do them on these massive pieces of paper, and the kids use trash and single-use plastics and other things they find to upcycle into, filling in this outline, creating this organism or this plant out of those things. And it's very, very creative. And it's exciting because then the kids can tell the story about the organism and what they learned about the organism, but also about why reducing trash and pollution, our use of single-use plastics, is so important. And so we always try and loop in that learning experience along with the art and use the art as a way for them to tell the story of their learning, which I think is so fun because it becomes accessible to so many kids who might not easily remember or be able to regurgitate the facts. But when they link it up with a creative process, that triggers a different part of their brain that allows them to really remember and like have that deeper learning experience, which I think we're all looking for as educators.
That's great. Thank you, Bethany, for sharing that. Matt, I'm going to turn to you now. We got a lot of questions about folks curious about your background. If you had any previous, path of study or interest in science and environmental science that sort of steered you to this opportunity, or how you saw it and decided that this was something you wanted to pursue.
Yeah, so I don't have any formal science background. And as a musician, I went to a conservatory, so there's um, no science classes happening there. I do have personally just an interest in that sort of thing, and I've as a sort of layperson, and read those books, and science fiction and things like that. So I have a somewhat of an interest, but and I can say that it did take some encouragement for me to follow through with this, because I had considered applying in previous years too, but really couldn't find um, I I couldn't think of my way in that I um, that felt right to me, that felt authentic to what I was doing, and so um, uh, but more sort of in the spirit of um, trying new things and looking for unusual experiences. That's one thing that drove me. Having this sort of structure already in place with a partnership between CIRCA and IMET certainly has made it um, much easier to do, and to be able to see what previous participants have produced was also really helpful.
That's great. Thank you. So kind of building off of having that program in place, we got a lot of questions about, these types of programs and how they're supported. So maybe Bethany, you could start us off, and Matt, if you have anything to add, just based off of, your experience in engaging with the program, People are asking, how are these funded? Is it coming from like internal, institutional funds or through other kinds of creative grant programs? And then I guess that would be the first part. And then Matt, just how do you, find the opportunities? Was it simply just from it existing within your institution and you were able to plug in, or is there a larger network? So maybe Bethany, we'll kind of start with you and hear a little bit if you have any insight onto how these are funded.
Sure. Yeah, it's something that we're still kind of grappling with. Funding is a giant question for everybody. For us, our Waves of Wonder program was funded through a competitive grant from the provost's office. And so we've been seeking out grant opportunities to fund similar things. Our most recent Artist in Residence was funded through a collaboration of university funds from a number of different departments. Everybody had a little bit of money left over from something that they wanted to put towards a, public outreach program. And so, that is how we supported that artist. We're still sort of looking for a way to create this as a program that is self-sustaining, whether that's an initial philanthropic donor that starts us off and then, proceeds continue to be reinvested back into that fellowship. Or the way we're approaching it currently is by using it, Artist in Residence, as a broader impact funded activity in research grant proposals. So we have sort of a menu of education and outreach options that our researchers can choose to partner with us on to administer the broader impacts for their research grants. And so one of those options now is, we will facilitate an artist in residence in your lab, and then it's funded by the grant fund. So we're having to be very, very creative in the way that we fund these programs because we believe in them so strongly, and we also believe that nobody should work for free. So, we feel really strongly that our artists need to be compensated. The students that participate in the student programs need to be compensated as well. And so, it's really important for us to continue finding creative ways to make sure that that happens. But, I would love to know if anybody has found a dedicated way to do it, because I would be right there with you.
Thanks, Bethany. So Matt, I guess asking you a little bit more about learning about these opportunities, is it just something that you were able to come across because your institution through UMBC had this existing program, or are there other avenues where folks who might be interested from the artistic community could look to see if these opportunities are available?
Sure. So this particular project is institutional support. So there's support from CIRCA and support from IMET, which is, and then there's also other kinds of support. So for example, IMET makes space available to the artists, and lots of other sort of support like that, which is also very valuable. And so for this particular being aware of that, it was just sort of within our institution. But in general, the ways to find out about this, there's beginning with CIRCA, there's an area for external funding opportunities. And so there's a list of possibilities where you can perhaps see yourself. For musicians, there's also Chamber Music America, which has different funding available for various kinds of projects where you can partner with a presenting institution and with the artist, or with an ensemble and a presenter, and put them together. There's arts organizations. The Maryland State Arts Council has different opportunities for creativity grants and depending on if you are, again, a presenter or you are have a particular project in mind that you can present. There are regional arts organizations. One that comes to mind is called South Arts, which also gives support for, particularly for jazz, for supporting tours, especially performances where there is not normally a performance, a jazz performance. So, for example, in a lab, or something like that. And so those are the sort of networks for finding funding opportunities, sort of in a nutshell, that I'm aware of.
Great. Thank you for passing on all of those resources. We'll be sure to capture them and make sure we can send those out to our audience today. So something else that came up is about artists and scientists working together. And, what do artists need to know about working with scientists, and what do scientists need to know about working with artists as we look to, build the relationships between these two communities? I'd love to hear from each of you on sort of any of your own experiences or lessons learned that might be helpful. So Bethany, why don't we start with you first, and then we'll go to Matt.
Sure. So this was something that we really wrestled with, this idea of like matchmaking, right? Like, how do we create this partnership that feels authentic and intentional and is exciting for the artists and also exciting for the scientist. We wanted our researchers that participated to go tell their friends that they participated and that they should get artists in their labs. And, we really wanted that to snowball in a very positive way. And so we were very intentional with at least the artists in residence in kind of handpicking researchers that we knew. We knew we had a plein air painter, so we knew we needed to have researchers that were out in the field versus, working in a lab for this type of artist. And ones that were open to sharing their work, ones that we had worked with previously on other education and outreach projects that we knew, were excited by the idea of outreach and not necessarily intimidated by it. And so we were really intentional about making that pairing for this artist. And, we put her on a boat and she went out to the mouth of the York River and, like hopped off waded up to the island, through waist deep water with all of her painting supplies and set up her canvas on the beach and just started painting. And it was really cool. And, the researchers were just shocked that she was so willing to just jump in and do that. And even when she painted on the shoreline, like there were drones buzzing above her head, like they were doing their science. And she was like, I don't want to slow anybody down. I don't want to get in the way. But everybody was very accommodating with just making sure that she was set up. But I think it comes from knowing your artists. We spent a lot of time meeting with artists and talking with them and, figuring out what was going to work best for them. Like, if you're a plein air painter and you're sort of used to being out in the field in all types of weather and working in that environment, so we didn't have the worry that we were going to send her out for a day in the field and it was going to be she wasn't used to that, right? But I think all of that comes from knowing your researchers, knowing your artists, and creating those connections and being very intentional about it. For the student program, we hosted a mixer. We bought food and students will come for food. We threw a pizza party and invited people and we asked our graduate students, please set up a little information table with some demos, bring a microscope, show off what you do, and fed them and just had students talking and speed dating sort of, through these tables. And it created these really great partnerships where the students then just like took it and ran with it. I didn't have to facilitate anything beyond, the initial thing. They met up for coffee. The grad students gave the undergrads a tour of the lab. They walked them through their research. They wanted to show them the cool stuff. So I think when you're intentional about creating opportunities for these partnerships to happen, the sky's the limit about what can be created but it definitely is not a very willy-nilly sort of a thing. It wasn't for us at least.
Um, yeah, one thing I was going to say is that um, it does seem like if someone is going to collaborate with an artist, it does seem like they're more likely to be asked to do that again in the future, too. That once you are seen as willing to collaborate and work like that, you tend to be towards the front of the line the next time someone wants to do that as well. So I guess for better or for worse, you're more likely to have that experience. Um, I thought it was interesting that people tend to seem to be really interested in what the creative process is and um, how we think. It's sort of just different ways of knowing. But I do think there sh really shouldn't be any concern about how different um, people are, because we're all just people anyway. And like the quote from Bethany's presentation, I do feel like, especially with the appreciation for doing and wanting to do pure science, is something that you identify with as an artist. Um, and the idea that I think you can be more open to the sublime or sort of the ineffable and just sort of awe with uh, with our world, or open to these sort of experiences. I think that's something that's very similar.
Great. Thank you for those thoughts. A question from the chat is, what do you think the biggest barriers are to having more artist and resident programs at research institutions? So I'll leave that to whoever would like to answer. Matt,
I,
you first.
I mean, I think we know it's money.
Hmm.
The barrier to anything is scheduling and budget. Um, because um, without sounding uh, too cynical, I think in terms if that were a it's about priorities. Um, I can I think the more often there are successful collaborations, like as demonstrated with Bethany's examples, the more likely that is to happen. I think so long as the process is well organized, so that you're always getting some sort of outcome. Um, I think that keeps the barriers at a minimum.
Yeah, for sure it's funding. But I think beyond that, it's figuring out how to get the buy-in that this is a worthwhile program and pursuit at, the administrative level, because I think it a lot of times unfortunately gets viewed as like, oh, this is a fun, like frou-frou, we're gonna make some art sort of a thing. And so if you're not great at being able to quantify how it's valuable to the institution, to the public, how it's going to spread the message of the institution further, or get more people involved or excited or knowing, like there has to be some sort of economic value to whatever you're doing. And so if you are good at being able to quantify that and present that, I think you get a little bit more traction from the research institution that this is valuable and real and important, and a way in which we can extend the work that the Institute does beyond just we're going to write a scientific paper and publish it. Because for me as a marine educator, this is just as valuable. I come from a science background. My master's degree is in marine science, so I understand that world, but have a strong passion for sharing it with people that might not understand it as much as I do. And so, I see these as really important pathways to be able to do that. And so it's just getting other people to believe that those are important pathways is really the other barrier. Because even if I had all of the money in the world to do it, I still need people to give me the time and the space and the ability to make these creative things happen. So getting that buy-in is the other piece of it beyond the money, for sure.
Great, thank you. And we have one final question that I just think is a really great one. And so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. And that's if every research institution had a program like this, what do you think would be different? There was no definition for different. So take that how you want to interpret it. But what would be different if every research institution had an artist in residence program or some way to infuse art and science together?
Well, I mean, it's as unique as art itself, right? We have thousands of artists across the planet who all have created their own unique niche for themselves and the art that they are passionate about creating. And so I think that in and of itself will make each one unique. But beyond that, there are different types of research at different types of institutions. And so inevitably, you're going to be translating different science in different ways, which is exciting to me, but also, you have opportunities to use professional artists. You have the opportunity to extend this to K-12 students, to undergraduate students, graduate students, to, amateur artists versus professional artists, so there are all of those different pieces that could be incorporated into an artist in residence program, and already are in some spaces. Our programs are not unique, but I spent a lot of time researching programs at other institutions before we sort of crafted ours. And they're all so cool and so unique. And so I think just the inherent value of how unique and interesting and cutting edge the science is paired with the unique art that each individual artist is willing or interested in creating is what makes each one unique and different.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would like to think also that great art can uh, ask a question of the person experiencing it, and which is what science is. And I like to think that it would have a positive effect on the research taking place at that institution as well, because it might influence someone into a different mode of thinking or a different way of approaching something in a way that we can't predict.
Great. Thank you both for sharing your thoughts with us today. We really appreciate your time that you were able to spend with us for this discussion. And thank you to everyone in the audience. I know that this is crunch week for a lot of folks before the holidays, so we can't thank you enough for spending an hour with us and exploring this topic. We hope that you will tune in with us for our January roundtable, which will be on the 21st. And look for the email to follow up with all of these great references. And Matt, we look forward to hearing your piece soon.
Yeah, great. Right on.
Thanks, everyone.